Welcome back to another episode of Disney Unpacked. It's me, Len Testa, and I'm told that today we're going to start the show with a quiz.
Riddle me this. What has been part of the core DNA of the Disney parks ever since Disneyland Park first opened in 1955?
Churros?
I'm going to go with $6 sodas.
No, guys, not even close. The answer is shooting galleries.
That was my second choice.
Oh, now it's time for the bonus round. Where in Disneyland was the first shooting gallery built?
Okay, I'm going with, since Disneyland opened in 55 and Davy Crockett was super popular, I'm going to go with the first shooting gallery was built in Frontierland.
You're a great guesser, but you got the wrong answer.
Okay, really?
Yeah, actually, Disneyland's first shooting gallery was located on Main Street, USA, in the Penny Arcade. That first shooting gallery was tiny, with only 8 pistols.
Nothing says Main Street, USA like pistols.
There you go.
Yeah, it was another time, a more innocent time. But, you know, let's pivot back and talk about the fact that the shooting gallery is so popular that Disneyland said, ooh, we can make money. So let's open another one of those. And they did so just 2 years later.
And was that the one in Frontierland?
Of course, he got one right. The Frontierland shooting gallery was larger than the one on Main Street. And now it featured 16 air-powered rifles, not pistols, rifles, as opposed to the 8 on Main Street. And given how popular these two shooting galleries were with guests, Disneyland decided to expand the operation yet again, which is why in 1962, they opened another shooting gallery, this time in Adventureland, and this one they named the Big Game Shoot.
Okay, so Jim Shull, when they say that Disneyland is the happiest place on Earth, do they mean the trigger happiest place on Earth? Also, I mean, if you think about it, there are a lot of like shooting type games that are super popular in Disney parks. I mean, there's Toy Story Mania, there's Web Slingers. I guess you could call it a shooting gallery, right?
Well, yeah, you know, we could debate that for the rest of the show, but let's move on again. The Imagineers learned the important lesson, which is that guests love to get in lines for passive attractions, but they also love the lines that they could get in for attractions where they could personally affect their experience. I mean, when you aim a rifle or a gun at something, pull the trigger and it reacts, that's not a passive experience.
All right, Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, which replaced, Jim, you know the attraction.
Well, it actually had 4 different names before Buzz moved in. What? If you had wings, if you could fly, Delta Dream Flight, and finally take flight.
This is the attraction where Disney's like, I don't care what you do, just don't do it here. Like that's. And then Toy Story came out, what year, Jim?
That came out in November 1995.
Okay, and so Toy Story is an immediate hit. Disney's like, oh, we got to get this in the park somewhere. And they decide Tomorrowland is the place where it goes?
Oh, where did you get there? You took a hard right. I'm not talking about that character set at all, Mr. Testa. I'm talking about a completely different set of characters. And besides that, you also got things wrong. I mean, let's go down your list. You know, I'm not talking about the aliens from the movie Toy Story. I'm talking about these guys.
Wait a minute. Who are these guys?
Oh, they'll never learn. Secondly, Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin wasn't based on the original Toy Story movie at all. Thirdly, yes. Because thirdly, the folks that ran the Magic Kingdom, well, they really loved if you had wings, if you could fly, Delta Dream Flight, and even take flight. But not for the reasons you might think.
Viewers, it sounds like Mr. Shull is about to take us to school. So in the immortal words of Apollo Creed, ding ding, better pull up a chair. It's time for another episode of Disney Unpacked. So, Jim Shull, you just said that the Magic Kingdom was in love with a Tomorrowland attraction that was sponsored by an airline. That sounds
unseemly, the love that dares not speak its name?
I was going to go with unlikely, but okay, Shakespeare.
Okay, so LOVE may be too strong a word to use in a situation like this one, but if you had Wings and Delta Dreamflight, well, they had two champions. They were the guests who regularly visited the Magic Kingdom and the people who ran the Magic Kingdom.
And why was that, Jim Shull?
Well, the Magic Kingdom managers liked the Omnimover ride system because it was dirt simple and it had high capacity, low maintenance, and it ran day and night. And the guests liked this ride because anyone from the oldest to the youngest family member could ride.
Plus, the ride was air conditioned. Once you climbed aboard, well, you were off your feet and then out of the brutal Florida sun for 4.5 minutes.
I mean, I always rode it, and my philosophy was anytime Grandma doesn't get a sunstroke, that's a good thing.
Okay. All right, but this was also a corporate sponsored attraction, which meant when you rode through If You Had Wings, you, not so coincidentally, traveled past scenes that then showed you places that Eastern Airlines actually flew to.
And to put the cherry on the vanilla sundae, there was even an Eastern Airline travel desk in the post-show section of this ride, which meant at the end of your air-conditioned journey, you'd step off your Omnimover and you could buy a plane ticket to the very locations that you'd just seen while you were riding.
Eastern Airlines withdrew as sponsor of If You Had Wings on June 1st, 1987, which is why this Tomorrowland attraction wound up with a brand new name, If You Could Fly, just 5 days later. And that same thing basically happened with Delta Dreamflight. Delta ended its sponsorship on January 1st, 1996, and the Imagineers removed all of the references to Delta Airlines and then reopened the attraction as Take Flight.
I think at this point, the sponsorship board outside of the attraction is probably a whiteboard with one of those dry erase markers. I mean, like if Southwest had shown up to sponsor the ride, would we have gotten like a third version, but with peanuts?
Yeah, maybe. I like peanuts. Now I'm hungry for peanuts. But anyway, what Disney would have done is they would have turned to Southwest and said, just make your check payable to the Walt Disney Company, Burbank, California. But as we all know, that didn't happen.
All right, I feel a pivot coming.
Ooh, you felt a pivot. Ooh, that's like the wind of death. But because that pivot didn't happen, the Imagineers did see an opportunity to transform a very large building with an existing known ride system and turn that into an interactive first-person shooter ride, which they had explored for years.
Okay, as sad as I was to see the various iterations of Dreamflight go away, and I shed a tear for that, I have to say this. I have liked every single attraction that has ever been in this building from the moment of its conception. So Jim, let's go back to the image that you shared, the concept art that you shared at the beginning of the show. What is that?
That piece of concept art was done for a proposed interactive shooter that the Imagineers had developed for the second floor of Disneyland's Carousel of Progress back in the early 1970s. I'll add here that Carousel is also a building that's had many, many lives, and this would have been one of them. But as we all know, that ride was never built. And even though it wasn't built, well, Imagineers really don't know the word no. It's not in our dictionary. And so the idea, well, it's set in the back lot of the Blue Sky Purgatory until came a concept along that, it was so close to being built. That attraction was Dick Tracy's Crime Stoppers.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, I know. Aliens, Crime Stoppers.
Anytime somebody says, the attraction that we came really close to building? Dick Tracy. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Well, no, but seriously though, if you remember the original expansion plans for MGM, we're talking the bells and whistles version of Sunset Boulevard. This featured a giant sort of warehouse complex where you got online and eventually the guests, before they got on their ride vehicles, you're going to love this line. First they were deputized, then they were issued Tommy guns, and then they climbed into squad cars and drove off to battle gangsters.
See, this is where I think, Jim, they should combine this with the ending of Carousel of Progress. They deputize Grandma, they give her a Tommy gun, and that's the virtual reality game that we should get in scene 4. I'm just
You're
spitballing
not
here.
far wrong. You're not far wrong. I mean, I was in.
That's what I'm afraid of. That I'm not far wrong. Yeah, good.
I was in the room with Michael Eisner when we were reviewing he was reviewing all of the different attractions, and he got to this ride. And there's that moment of dead silence where Michael would look at something and then look at the person pitching, then look at the thing and look back at the person pitching, then look at the thing. And he's quiet, and then we were quiet. And he looked at it and said, "Wait, you're telling me that you're going to be giving me a gun? I'm going to get in a car. I'm going to drive at high speeds. And I'm going to shoot people." Yes, I love it.
Exactly.
Love it.
Perfect.
Love it.
No notes.
And that's, guys, it doesn't get better than this, and there's some things you just can't make up. And it would have been an industry-changing ride if it had been built. However, there's a little problem. It was based on a film franchise that they thought was going to be a big, big, big hit. And it made money, but it didn't make enough money. It was a disappointment based on the expectations for what it could have done. And so the company then decided, well, let's pull the plug on this project. Because the fact is, this is a great example. It's not enough to have an idea that everyone agrees was going to be a game-changing addition to the park. It didn't matter that Michael Eisner that afternoon in the old bowling alley stood there and said, "This is fantastic. I love it." For a project like this, or any project, to make it all the way through the approval process, all the stars have to align.
All right, so I assume, Jim Shull, the first thing that we need here is a successful film, at least one, right? And you had that with Toy Story.
This is true. Toy Story was the year's third highest grossing film for all of 1995.
Okay. When did Delta stop sponsoring Dreamplate?
January 1st, 1996, while Toy Story was still out in theaters.
Okay, so I'm assuming that really helps the project get approved, right?
Oh, you silly man. We need proof that, people really wanted to see these Pixar characters in the Disney park. Remember, you never know it works until it works. And so you need a good test case. And this test case came from the most unlikely of places. It came from a temporary attraction that was going to open in the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood.
Oh, you're talking about Toy Story Funhouse.
I have never heard of Toy Story Funhouse. What was it?
Disney's PR team really wanted to do something to make the Hollywood presentation of Pixar's first ever full-length animated feature seem special, which is why they wound up renting the building right next door to the El Capitan.
And I got to tell you, remember, again, we all assume something's going to be a hit, but you never know. The first time I saw Toy Story, the movie, was projected on the side of the Pearson Auto Museum in Los Angeles. So going to the Hollywood Cannonade, which used to be an old Masonic temple, it's not really an on-Broadway kind of prestige location for this, but it was enough of a location to kind of stage a test case on whether Toy Story characters would be popular.
By the way, Len, you know this building. It's actually where Jimmy Kimmel Live is filmed today.
Oh, I didn't know that, but I'm happy I do.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, okay, so Disney builds this elaborate Toy Story-themed play area inside of the Hollywood Colonnade, and they then stage totally Toy Story, with the idea being here that after you've seen Toy Story next door at the El Capitan, you go over to, again, where Kimmel's staged these days, and experience the Toy Story Funhouse, which is 3 floors of oversized props where you could do things like explore Andy's bedroom, or I want to say there was a Bo Peep musical review also.
All right, that sounds like fun, not going to lie.
Mm-hmm.
It was a hoot, and it was fun. And after the original Toy Story ended its 6-week run at the El Capitan Theater, well, the Disneyland Entertainment folks, they saw an opportunity to get props for free. So they packed up all of those oversized props, including Bo Peep, and shipped them down the street on the I-5 to Anaheim, California, where Toy Story was installed in the most natural and obvious of places. They went into Tomorrowland.
Why Tomorrowland, Jim Shull? Killing me.
This is right after the 1995 holiday season, which is when a lot of these attractions had already been shut down ahead of the demolition work that was about to begin on Disneyland's new Tomorrowland.
Well, and you got to understand also, yeah, it made no sense at all to have Andy's toys in Tomorrowland, but it just so happened that they had room in Tomorrowland. And again, this was going to be temporary. And because it's temporary, a lot of forgiveness is given. So they went to Anaheim and they went into Tomorrowland temporarily.
For the time in which Tomorrowland wasn't really Tomorrowland because it was becoming New Tomorrowland, they put in the Toy Story stuff. All right, fair enough. Okay, that I can see that. They've already paid for all of the props. Tomorrowland was getting a makeover anyway. All right, that seems pretty smart to me. Go ahead.
Well, you know, we could have this debate about when is Tomorrowland really Yesterday-land, but we digress. The fact is that Toy Story Funhouse proved so popular with Disneyland guests that the manager said, no, scratch that what we said about temporary. We're going to keep this another 5 full weeks beyond the date we told you we're going to close it. And the success kind of got out. People understood, ooh, this really does work, and let's do it again. And the people who said, we're next, are the people down in Florida at the Magic Kingdom.
Oh, right, because didn't Walt Disney World have its own version of the Funhouse over at MGM Studios?
Len, you're not wrong. I mean, you see, after the Buzz figure was no longer needed in Anaheim, he retired down to Orlando, you know, as all seniors do. And he took up his position on the roof to catch a few rays on top of the building that now became the Pizza Planet.
So the Imagineers see that they have an opportunity with the now unsponsored attraction in the Magic Kingdom in Tomorrowland. They look at Toy Story Funhouse in Anaheim, and they look at Buzz Lightyear's Pizza Planet in Paris. They realize that people are going to love anything built around, you know, this one character from Toy Story. So Buzz Lightyear, sure bet. What was the next step here? Did you guys all get your movie popcorn and snacks and start watching Toy Story over and over again?
We did. We burned
Did you really?
a lot of popcorn. You know, actually, we spent hours and hours and hours watching Buzz Lightyear in his action mode, frame by frame by frame, except we weren't watching the Toy Story movie. And that's because, as I mentioned earlier, for those who are keeping score, Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin is actually built around a completely different version of the Buzz character than the one that was found in the Pixar film. It's not the same Buzz.
Wait, I know that there's another Lightyear out there then. So this must be Biff Lightyear, Buzz's evil twin?
Oh, yeah, well, the secret's out.
All right.
No.
Biff Lightyear.
This version of the title character in Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, he was a star in that animated television show that Disney Television Animation produced way back in 2000-ish. You know, Jim Hill, you've got to remember this animated series, don't you?
Indeed I do. Buzz Lightyear Star Command was put in development in early 1997, just a few months after the original Toy Story had first arrived in theaters. And over time, 65 episodes of this hand-drawn animated series were produced, not to mention a direct-to-video prequel, which was then used to launch the TV show. I want to say that home premiere was called Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, The Adventure Begins.
Okay, hold on a second. You're saying that when Imagineers want to develop an attraction for the parks, the first thing they look for is a successful film franchise. You're telling me now that we're using direct-to-video for this Tomorrowland attraction?
You know, let's look at a few of the backgrounds that the artist at the television animation crafted for this TV show, and you'll get an idea of why we made this choice.
Oh, Floating Space Mountain.
Oh, Floating Space Mountain, indeed. Many of the design elements for this animated series were based on the designs of the classic Tomorrowland.
Okay, so following that logic, the Buzz Lightyear of Star Command animated series provided the necessary visual building blocks, but that said, you still had to fit the actual attraction inside of a show building with a pre-existing ride system.
Well, yeah, and it isn't the easiest of tasks. I mean, we've had a shoe box that we're going to be putting a whole wardrobe of shoes and a few dresses into. But when design anything new, there's the easy part and then the hard part. With our Buzz, the easy part was that the WDI team inherited the Dreamflight building and it had a high capacity, extremely reliable ride system. That was a keeper. That's not going away. But the hard part was transforming that ride system so that it could track guest scores and signal responses to off-vehicle animated targets. Remember, every time you shot something, something off-board reacted.
Didn't this Tomorrowland attraction have like 106 separate ride vehicles that continuously move through the show building?
Oh, not only that, Jim, but you've got 2 people per ride vehicle, so you've really got 212 things to keep track of, right? You have to make sure that you have to check to see whether somebody's hit a target and then make sure that they get credit for it. That is a lot of scorekeeping.
Wait, I failed math. But, you got to remember that, while riding guests, all I cared about is that guests riding and shooting and trying to score something would have the satisfaction of seeing their targets animate. When they shot something, they got a reaction. That's the same paradigm that we are talking about a long time ago, back in Anaheim, back on Main Street with those, pistols in their shooting gallery. People love to see a reaction and be a participant. And Buzz was an example. We started today's show with a pop quiz, and now it's time for a test. Len, I'm turning to you. Len, what did you learn today?
I learned today that I need to book a trip to Disneyland Paris to take a look at that battery collection scene in Buzz Lightyear.
Oh, Monday. Cannot learn. Oh, that's it. You got one flimsy excuse to fly off to Paris?
Yes, that is exactly it. But before I leave for Paris, Jim, my understanding is that you're working on the new Minions Villain Con for first-person shooter. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
What did you say? What did you say?
All right, well, it looks like we lost Jim before I could ask what we're going to be talking about for our next show in the series.
And I'm back. I feel better. How about on the next time we talk about the history of stunt shows in the Disney parks?
All right, that sounds like a plan. And for our Patreon subscribers, just a reminder that if you check out this month's Carry On podcast, you'll hear several stories that were cut out of this Disney Unpacked as Mr. Hill, Mr. Shull, and I were developing the show. Thanks for watching Disney Unpacked.
Jim Hill here. If you've been enjoying Disney Unpacked on YouTube, be sure and head on over to Patreon and join our community. Not only will you receive the entire Jim Hill Media suite of podcasts ad-free, but you'll also get bonus episodes of the Disney Dish and, more importantly, the full episodes of Disney Unpacked with more stories from Jim Shull, Len Testa, and I. By joining our Patreon, you are helping us continue to evolve our entertainment offerings and are part of the team. We can't wait to show you some of the other ideas we've been working on. And if you haven't yet, be sure and subscribe to Disney Unpacked on YouTube. Thanks for watching and supporting the team at Jim Hill Media and Disney Unpacked.